Hi everyone, so a huge welcome to the Stampex Auditorium and this Stampex talk, which is very, very exciting. We are hosting the Future of Philately panel discussion. Now you can see we've got some great names in the room here. I'm just going to quickly introduce you to everyone. The discussion will be hosted by Tony Bard, who is editor of the Royal Philatelic Society London's magazine, The London Philatelist. Just a little background on Tony. In 2015, Tony won the Society's Tapling Medal for the best article published in the LP for his study of North Korea wartime philately. He is Vice President of the Korea Stamp Society and editor of their journal, Korean Philately. Recently, Tony was appointed chair of the Sussex Postal History Society and has also become the editor of the Scandinavian Collectors Club magazine. Very busy. He has exhibited nationally and internationally over the years, winning gold medals for his exhibits. Alongside Tony, the panel. So we've got Bill Hedley, President of the Federation of European Philatelic Associations. This is an international organisation that exists to support and encourage national bodies, such as the ABPS, to promote philately for sharing information, promoting innovation and cooperation, supporting exhibits and rewarding achievement. You can learn more about the FEPA on their website, www.fepanews.com. Thank you so much for joining us, Bill. Welcome. And then we've got Tom Droege. Have I said your name right, Tom?
No.
I'm so sorry. I knew I hadn't. Tom is the president of the, you're going to have to tell me how to say your name again.
Droege Computing. Just call me Stamp Action Network.
A software development and IT services firm founded in 1985. I'm so sorry, Tom. Tom has built more than 30 enterprise systems, including auction management, inventory and purchasing systems, patient care systems, and toxicology. As his career developed, he created StampAuctionNetworks.com, the top stamp auction site in the world, and became a subject matter expert in auctions of all kinds, but specifically wine and stamp auctions. And Tom, I believe you're also a stamp collector as well, don't you? You have.
I do. I am.
Really cool. And then we've got Jack Preuveneers. Jack is also said your name incorrectly, haven't I, Jack?
No, that was good.
Oh, nailed it. Jack is a collector himself. He is also a member of the Royal Philatelic Society London. Some, however, will know him as Discord Jack, as he created the channel, the International Philatelic Promoters on Discord. It was the first Discord channel focusing on stamp collecting. It's got hundreds of members. It's really cool. I'm going to pop the link so you can see it in the chat box so you can find out more. Anyway, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for being here today, and I'm going to hand you over to Tony.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you as well for the intros, and I would just say that it's Tom Droege. I got that right. Yes,
you did, Tony.
Fantastic. Thanks,
Tony. The E isn't, the second E is not silent. So we're here to discuss the future of philately, which I think for 3 out of the 4 panelists is a very different thing to the sort of future that Jack might be looking at. It's likely to be somewhat longer, but the commonality between us all is that we are hooked on, and I won't denigrate philately by calling it a hobby, but we are hooked on this obsessive collecting, be it as traditional stamp collectors, be it as postal historians and all the other branches that are involved. But I think that also what I suggest is that we're talking 2 things. When we talk about the future of philately, we are potentially talking about the future of organized philately, and we're talking about the future of what so many collectors who may never have been to a stamp society meeting, may never have attended an auction, may not even get philatelic journals. It's difficult to say what sort of proportion they represent, but they are out there too. So we have this complete, we have 2 worlds. But I think that the collector who is, so we say, more backward in coming forward in terms of joining in organised philately, still benefits whether they know it or not. For my sins, I've been a member of the Royal since 1977, and to date, I have attended one display, which was my own. So I was never that much involved up until I took over the editorship of the LP, which in itself has exposed me to a huge amount of philately and very little of what I collect myself or would have declared an interest in. But it's amazing how these things can prompt the curious mind. So amongst the very challenging questions that have been suggested by Isabel, it's a little bit like an interview, is where do you see philately in 5 years' time, which is probably relevant to three of us. I would say that the second question is, where do we see philately in 50 years' time? That's down to you, Jack. but before we started, I mean, Bill, you made a very pertinent comment, is that if we've been having this discussion 4 years ago, then I guarantee that any mention of Zoom meetings, Zoom displays, virtual Stampex, I can't imagine that would have come up as a topic at all. It's not as though the facility didn't exist in the world of business, but unless you happen to be involved in a business which used that, or Teams, or the various other virtual meeting software that exists, if it hadn't been for the pandemic, which in so many ways, despite the terrible consequences of that period, was a fantastic boon for collectors, which I think individually, I think we would agree. Certainly the auctioneers would probably agree. And so we can only, I suppose, like a lot of people, is I believe the Latin expression is post hoc propter hoc. So because something happened before, it's going to happen in the future. Now, at the moment, trying to chart what the future is something I'd like your views on, what you feel, and we'll do the sort of should we say the more matured collectors outlook, and then Jack can tell us what's real. So Bill, come on, as the first person.
First of all, I agree completely with your comment that the last 4 years have revolutionized the way in which philatelic activities are undertaken. It's normal now for not just for meetings to be held on Zoom, but also for auctions to be streamed online. This was happening before, of course, but it's much more, let's say it's gone much wider. And I think it's accepted as part of normal life by many more people than would have been the case before. So that's and undoubtedly the digital aspects of life will continue to well, I was going to say invade, but I think that's the wrong word. But they'll continue to influence the way in which we manage our philately. There's no doubt about that, and we have to plan accordingly and make the most of the opportunities and try and help people to do that. And indeed, one of the issues that concerns us is that there are very wide discrepancies between different countries and different areas in their approach to this and the extent to which they take advantage of it. And of course, one of the problems they have is that I don't know about other countries, but certainly in the UK, there is a strong tendency to resist innovation and to work on the basis that we've always done it this way, and that's the way we do it. So we should carry on doing it this way, which is by and large a formula for signing your own death warrant, really, in the long run. And so there's an uphill struggle to fight there. I think my perception of this, others may have a different view. I mean, I personally am not a particular fan of doing things digitally all the time. I don't mind doing it occasionally, but I'm not a great eBay buyer or anything like that. Is that while the pandemic was going on, there was quite a feeling that this was going to take over the world and everything was going to change forever. And actually, what we've seen is that there was, as soon as things eased up a bit and the restrictions were lifted, everyone rather rejoiced in the fact that they were able to get together again in the live setting, as opposed to
that in itself didn't mean the end of Zoom. I think, in fact, what we're coming to now is this two-stage.
The two streams will obviously run side by side, and I don't know where it'll end up. I mean, who does? For heaven's sake, I keep hearing these days about artificial intelligence, whatever that is, and before long, we may have a totally different outlook on life to what we've had in the past. I don't know. However, it seems to me that that's a very important aspect, but it's not the only one in terms of philatelic organization. And there are other problems that we need to look at and bear in mind and focus on as well. And they're very much to do with the social aspect and social interaction and the way in which people can derive the benefits from philately that are available if they only choose to.
But I think
move out of their bedrooms and
with respect to us senior collectors, let's call us, the social side of life has changed dramatically for younger collectors, the younger people, in that, I mean, I know probably for a fact that the main use of a phone has got nothing to do with making telephone calls. Would I be right, Jack? Or
yes,
that's the sort of fourth or fifth most important thing on the list of what you use it for. So our definition, if you like, the senior version of the social interaction and its importance is something that we've grown up with. I think that is not as pressing with younger collectors as it is with us. But if we come to you last, Jack, because you're going to throw everything we've said on its head. Tom, you've been in the online game for longer than online, haven't you?
Yeah, so to the question of 5 years. So interestingly, we wrote a white paper about this 25 years ago. At the time in the 90s, we were helping the auction companies enter the technology revolution at the time. So we were the guys that brought catalog production, all those catalogs you saw in the 90s. Those were all with our system. It was the technology of database publishing. And, my white paper was all about the technology of the internet and how that would change. And so I've asked this question before, and I'm approaching the. I am 65, but I think we still need to approach this question today as we. It's amazing to see where we've come in 25 years, right? I mean, the stuff that we're doing now, and the stuff that auction companies are doing to get catalogs out in so quick a time, and the expectations too. I mean, 25 years ago, if you called up an auction company and said, "I want a scan of this collection lot," they'd laugh at you. That we didn't scan collection lots. We now scan all collection lots, and if you don't scan the whole thing, you won't sell. So it's just the stuff. I think I can speak more to the business side of this question because that's where I enter the conversation. I mean, the it's a joke, is that the 90-year-olds are selling to the 80-year-olds, right? That's where we are in the auction world. It's kind of a joke, but there's a little bit of truth in there. The reality is that there are huge collections out there waiting to come on the market on the orders of hundreds of millions of dollars. And these consigners are waiting for the right time to sell them. So there's this pent-up demand to sell. Yeah, there are still people putting together, I can tell you for truth, there are still people putting together the next Zollner collection, which is crazy. I mean, in America, that's a complete collection of all the US stamps. Only one person has done it, and that was Zollner. He sold his collection back in the 90s, I believe, 80, just around the time I got involved. I was involved in creating that catalog also. So what we have right now in the next 5 years is an amazing opportunity to buy, but premium material is still holding up. That's what's going on. But collections, unless a collection can be broken down to sell at eBay, so if in all these other off areas, collections are a great bargain now. But I see the important dynamic here is the next, well, there's two generations. There's the immediate generation coming up. These are the 45 to 65-year-olds. These guys, in my mind, are demanding data and metrics. They don't have 40 years of background collecting from a young person and the fly specking that is part of our business. So these people want to come up to speed fast. They're interested in collecting. They've achieved a certain amount of wealth. They get the idea, like to collect stamps. They need metrics. They need data. So that's what we're trying to be, and we're also trying to look at what's going on with the younger folks. But that's what I would offer. That's some of the thoughts I have to offer on 5 years from now.
Yeah, excellent. So Jack, your perspective. Obviously you've got your Discord initiative.
Yes.
Enthusing your peers and the few older and younger people signing up as well. But as Tom was just saying, Bill, Tom, and myself grew up in an era where most people's exposure to stamp collecting was at school. There was a school stamp club. I was fortunate. The first thing that really amazed me was that there was a grown-up involved in anything to do with stamps, because as far as I knew, it was my mates. They were the ones I swapped things with. And then we had the fortune to go and see the Royal Collection for the one occasion I think it's ever been on show. And then you come up, and then eventually you might join a club, you might go to an auction, you become immersed, you read the magazines, the monthly magazines. In my day, or our day, there were almost weekly magazines. And we have taken that and negotiated it through the advent of all these technological improvements. And there's no question that 95% of it is improvement, because as Tom was saying, the aggravation one you used to have to go to. I mean, you actually had to physically go and view things. Who does that anymore? Well, people do, but not in numbers, I bet, because you don't need to. And then we've embraced, most of us in whatever way, if we're serious, or if we have a collecting area which has benefited from things like archives going online, the ability to, this morning I was chatting to somebody from Australia, just before that somebody in Korea. Tonight I'll be talking to American collectors or people who've got articles. I mean, it's a 24-hour game. Yeah. Now, if you happen to be a sociopath, it's not great, right? But then you just switch off your internet. But if you are out there to absorb the potential for information, the discussion with other collectors, new collectors who are interested, then the web and all its offshoots and social media. I mean, there is a thing out there called Facebook. You won't ever have used it, Jack, because it's far older people than you. But I mean, if we talk about the organizational aspect of things, I have a couple of examples of how, as Bill was saying before, if you embrace the technology, the social media technology, you have a chance. I'm as Isabel was saying, I'm a vice president of the Korean Stamp Society. Now, that was set up in 1952 by many of the founding fathers were actually in uniform fighting in Korea. And it had a very active membership, had an excellent journal. And then in about 2012 or thereabouts, it virtually disappeared. You would maybe get an email if you were lucky once a year. And then a very enterprising gentleman in Holland, Ivo Spansieberg, decided he was going to set up a Facebook page, see what happens. And he is fortunately savvy in the technical running of Facebook websites and everything else. And we currently have a quarterly journal. We have, I think it's 800 members, and it's great. Okay, we never have a meeting. We want to interact. We'll interact in the antisocial way, which is fine. If you compare that to another society that I'm a member of, which is of similar vintage, we are we're trying to ignite the phoenix at the moment, right? Because it's been dying on its feet, usually by the attrition in terms of life and the death of some fantastic philatelists. Had a great journal, which died about 15 years ago. And we have just managed to refocus ourselves because our previous secretary, I love him, used to work for Royal Mail and felt that by using email, you were actually preventing the Royal Mail from earning income that they deserved. So he refused to use email. We have a new, older secretary now, who we're just trying to prompt to take the giant step into having a Facebook page, because otherwise we'll just look at each other and watch ourselves die, which I can do in the mirror. But yeah. So tell us from your perspective. I mean, you're involved. You're actually involved.
Yeah, well, I share a similar sentiment to what you're saying about the. There's almost still been like a reluctance to take up technology. There's a gentleman in the Scandinavia Philatelic Society who, when he sends me his articles to put into the magazine, actually sends them by post with the items that I have, which I have to scan myself, and then
I get them handwritten.
Yeah, so I just scan the articles he sends me, and I just use OCR to extract the text from the page. So it works quite well. And we've only just created a Facebook page, I think, a month ago or so. So we're still slowly implementing technology and trying to get up to speed with the modern world on that front. When I took over as editor, it was just to try and put some youthfulness, I guess, back into the publication and trying to reinvigorate the love for the hobby. We still sometimes struggle to get enough articles and enough interaction through the magazine, but we're hoping as it carries on and more people get exposed to it. We send more copies out digitally now than we do physically. People are starting to take like a PDF copy as opposed to a in-print magazine.
Well, so that's with the Korea Stamp Society, it's basically available online unless you want a copy printed. So it's print on demand. And I think that the number of copies that are actually printed off is very small, which is interesting, certainly. But what's your background in collecting, right? So Bill, Tom, and myself. I'm making a presumption on your part, Bill, Tom, that you were a schoolboy collector. Were you? So you muted. Sorry, Tom.
Yeah, mine was your experience. Fourth grade, a friend of mine told me about collecting, and it was his mom. It wasn't a teacher, but yeah, there was an adult involved.
Right, but in your case, Jack, how did you enter this magical world?
It was fairly random, to be frank. I studied at University of Naval Architecture and Marine Engineering, and I was randomly on eBay, saw some stamps with some boats on from Sweden, and bought them basically. And then I saw there were some more boat stamps from Sweden, and I bought them. And I just thought to myself, well, I've started, so I'll finish. So I then completed Sweden from early to modern, and then thought the early section was quite interesting and specialised in that, and started exhibiting at the youth shows in Stampex, and then finally won the British Youth Championship and was allowed to exhibit internationally. So
Fantastic.
That was good.
Yeah, brilliant, brilliant. Well, it is interesting because you had skipped what would have been the standard way in.
Yes, so I
Right.
started at 18. No one in my family collects to any
Yes.
degree. It was quite
I
random,
mean-
to be honest.
I mean, the attrition rate, even though we so many kids back in the 50s, 60s were stamp collectors, the attrition rate was huge because the boys found girls and the girls found boys, and that goes to stamp collecting in most cases. And I would say that a lot of the offers of material that I get through Cherrystone, especially on not the sort of like the main consignments, but so many of them are from that era and maybe a little bit on, and it's just I don't think so. But you skipped all that, which is fantastic. Your life choice in terms of your studies brought you to an extension of your interests.
Yes.
And you see, there's you'll have heard, I'm sure, everyone, stamp collecting philately is dying. This is not an uncommon phrase. I prefer to use the term that philately is evolving. Yes, the schoolboy stamp collector who will get his approvals in the mail and actually find a stamp shop would be impressive, certainly within the UK, is a thing of the past. But by the same token, I don't think there are too many kids who collect old cars, Victorian watercolors. Any amount of collecting areas is not an area which is something that kids get involved in. So I think we've moved on.
From what I've seen, a lot of people actually are taking it up more in their teenage years, from people that I'm seeing, and people are seeing stamps on social media, on Instagram, on Reddit, different platforms, and they're getting into it more from just like how kids used to do it back in the day, like they're pretty pictures, some's got flowers on, some have got cars, and then slowly these people are starting to actually evolve into starting to specialize, or you do see that people have started on I guess basic collections, and then they are actually seeking out societies to join, and these are younger people, and they actually are going out and looking for the societies, buying the literature, presenting their collections to quite a nice degree. We are actually starting to see more younger people get into it through social media, and then they're moving from the digital space to the physical space now. So that's where digital and online philately is helping to keep it going for the future. That's
absolutely,
definitely from what I've seen.
Fantastic. So I think the situation is not as bleak as some people like to make it. Certainly it's good. It's a good hook for the press and things like that. But I don't think, as I say, I have my own view. I don't see enough younger collectors in terms of submitting articles. As I say, I'm an occasional visitor to displays at the Royal, but I would imagine that they are in short supply, younger ones. I mean, I did go to Stampex. I think it was pre-pandemic, and I went up to the gallery area, and I looked down, and with respect, there was a sea of grey hair and bald heads. I'm fortunate so far. I mean, it may not last, right? And I left. I said, I'm not that old. But, and also, I mean, you talk about shows and things like that. I think that I can't talk for the American experience. I mean, but certainly the UK experience has been quite sad. We've now lost one of our two Stampexes. There was a time when we had Stampex, we had Philatex, we had the BPE exhibition and things like that. And I was forever going up to town and going to exhibitions, local stamp fairs and things like that. Well, there are some that still exist. That's fine. But you go to Asia, and I was in Korea, admittedly, it's nearly 10 years ago, and you couldn't move for kids, and they weren't there because their teachers had dragged them there for the day or something like that. They were actively keen. And you only really have to go through to some of the exhibitions, probably in Europe and not just the UK, and go onto the stands which are there to foster youth collecting. And I don't see any youth, because they're going to be at school anyway for 90% of the time, as it is. And on the Saturday, they may be with you. And I admire the people involved in it. I admire their initiative and their drive. But I think that what you're saying is very interesting, is that we've just got to put the entry age up.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely young adults are getting into it off their own backs rather than being pushed to younger age. That's what I'm seeing.
Yeah, and there's sort of all the work that people like Tom have put in terms of building up this digital world. We start to take it, but you I imagine by now you probably already started taking it for granted. That's what you do.
I think
sorry, Jack.
All I'm going to say is let's talk about what we can do. I mean, this conversation is not that interesting to talk about the state of where we are. So let's talk about what we are doing. I mean, like Jack, what you're suggesting. So, I think we ought to be discovering what made Jack and look at what got him back into collecting and looking for the success stories that did bring people back into collectors. Try to find out what's in common with those and repeat and rinse and et cetera. But sorry.
Bill.
I'd just offer a couple of comments. I thought Jack's comments were very interesting, actually, and well worth paying attention to. Just a couple of comments. I have a bit of a hobby horse about the brand of Philately, which I've yet to meet anybody who hasn't studied Greek, and even those who have, who understand what exactly Philately means. The word was invented by a Frenchman in the 1860s, and it's something to do with people who like collecting, who like something to do with collecting. Well, it's to do with avoiding charges, or having. My point is that it's an extremely difficult thing to explain, and I've read various attempts to explain it, and I've never really understood them. So how on earth we're supposed to explain this to the wider world seems to me to be a problem. And stamp collecting, if anything, is even worse. I mean, it sounds like bus ticket collecting or something. And so the point I'm making.
Yeah. The
point I'm making here is that there are actually significant advantages for people in engaging in this activity, which personally I would prefer not to call a hobby. Actually, it rather diminishes it as especially in terms of the quality of the research that's done.
Well, so Jack, I mean, how would you describe yourself?
I would call myself a philatelist rather than a stamp collector. I think philately implies there's a good level of study involved and research.
And does that resonate with the people you talk to, or are they kind of the new adherents?
Mix. There were people. I would say there's people that would call themselves philatelists. Some people would prefer to stick with like a stamp collector. I wouldn't want to remove the word philately or philatelist. It's quite a unique word, and it definitely draws interest from people that hear it who have no idea what it is, for sure.
Well, I've yet to meet anybody who isn't involved in it, who has the faintest idea what it means. But that's again an interesting comment. My point here is it's not well understood. There are advantages, significant advantages in it, which are not widely appreciated outside the field of the people who actually do it. And I would personally like to find a way of presenting philately to the wider world in a way that improved understanding of it and made people feel more positive about it, because all I ever see in the newspapers is very negative portrayals of it, and roughly along the lines of train spotting or bus ticket collecting or something. It seems to me that we have not done a good job of selling ourselves to the wider world. This applies, for example, in the academic world, where it's quite difficult to persuade academics to engage with philatelists, although, to my mind, there could be significant gains to be made if that were to happen. But that part of that problem lies with the academics as well as with the philatelists. And I'm not trying to outline a plan for the way ahead, but I do think we should be thinking of ways in which we can make ourselves better understood and also more presentable to the wider world. Philatelists have a tendency to hide away and be a bit introverted, and they're not a lot of them, and some find it easy to engage more widely, but a lot of people don't, and that is a deterrent to the meeting and the social engagement side of things. But I have to say, in all my experience, when you go to a meeting with philatelists, it's always extremely enjoyable, because they're all very interesting people, and they're keen to talk, and there's always a lot to be gained from it. And I just wish we could find a way of selling this. I fully take the point on board about the Facebook pages and so on, and the value of that as a form of engagement. I just hope that we don't, as the rest of the world seems to be, retreat into our homes and our bedrooms and engage with the world in that way rather than in personal contact.
But Bill, isn't if the social media growth of philately is what we anticipate it will continue at, because of the breadth of people that you can include within your meetings like this, you're never going to really get a chance to meet them. That's and I think that
I absolutely agree. That is the other side of the coin. Here we are, we can have a meeting with people in 4 widely differing locations this afternoon. Perfectly sensible discussion. I completely take that on board. Yeah.
What about the perception of what I would say the majority of people, not saying they're collectors, would come across in terms of what philately represents in the daily life? I'm talking about postal administrations. I'm talking about new issues. I'm talking about the slightly further off the scale NFTs and crypto stamps, and these innovations, short-lived as I'm sure some of them may well be. I mean, is that I can't necessarily believe that filters down to the philatelic world, but it's what people, the man in the street, the woman in the street, would potentially come across.
Well, it does give relevance to Isabel's question about what will it be like in 50 years' time? Because by then the postage stamp will have become postal history by some years earlier. Who knows?
Well, haven't Iceland already ditched?
They've already
stamps
stopped
anyway?
issuing them.
We can all talk about. I don't know what the situation is like in the States if you ever go into a post office, but very rarely will offer to frank your letters or your packages with stamps. It's it's.
Well, it was the new technology of the 1840s, which is now pretty much reached the end of its life, really. And
what do you feel, Jack and Tom, in terms of what we're talking about? Sort of, the fact that a lot of people don't even have the first idea if you was telling me you're a philatelist. And I know from certain Google translations, when you translate philately in other languages, it comes up as, I don't know, psychotherapy or whatever. It doesn't exist in as far as the Google world is concerned. But in terms of what you see, it's the things that we now have in the UK. We've the end of the Machin era, and we're now with the Jennings era, and that garnered some column inches. The price always goes up, surprise, surprise. And yes, they'll look at things that these, as I said before, NFTs, which I think, from what I can read, have come and gone in terms of a collecting form that's going to generate huge amounts of money, and potentially the same with cryptocurrency, because I think that its impact in terms of what people actually have experienced any crypto-related involvement is minimal. Does it even mean anything? Is it irrelevant? Purely marketing for postal administration, so they don't actually have to fulfill a contract to deliver something. They can just sell the stamp at the face value. What would you think, Jack?
It's mixed for me. I think there's a lot of the current NFT usages for stamps have no or little to no purpose. It's just a digital image that they're trying to sell. I guess it's tied to the stamp for free to a degree, so you're not paying, I guess, any extra than the face value of the stamp. I think can be good and great usage for the blockchain within philately and postage stamps. You could have, you know how like the new Royal Mail stamps, they have a barcode on them. Say that's tied to the blockchain. You could use that as proof of sending. If you send a letter, you can tell a person. I think it would be great for, like, say, HMRC send you a letter. They can have the stamp on the letter with a unique code. When you send that letter, HMRC can tell you on their website that they are sending you a letter with that stamp. It's got that known code on. When you receive it, let's say you get it, you can compare it to what HMRC are telling you. If it's different, then you know that might be a fake letter, a scam letter. But if it matches up with what HMRC have told you, and you can compare it on the blockchain that stamp has been owned by, I don't know, HMRC, and you've received it and it's the same one, then that could be a great use. It can't be forged in that case. There's other usages, just having a pretty picture. I'm not so sure about, but the genuine blockchain usages of cryptographic protection, I think, could be beneficial for forgery prevention.
Is that a logical extension of postal mechanization in some ways? Security element comes in a lot more. Yeah,
that's how I visualize it, more of a security proof of sending, proof of authentication. Possibly, I'm not sure how it will go on in the future for just selling a picture, but I think there's definitely a security element that could be used there.
Right. And Tom, in terms of...
so the business case for NFTs is a real one. It is a way to monetize pure digital arts. So we follow that line of reasoning. I think we are, as our company is diving deep into this question of NFTs. We wrote a white paper on it over a year ago, and we've got a task force looking at it right now. I don't think it's something that we should. I think there's potential opportunity there. There are some real use cases that aren't not scalable, like in the auction world, that are actually real use cases. But what we're looking at is So here's the angle that I think we need to be thinking out of the box on this kind of thing if we want to create new generations of collectors. And one of the things that's going on in the world is that the younger generation is totally digital, but there are places where they are going back to analog. And one of those places is in record collections.
Vinyl,
All of a sudden, you know, people want vinyl, they're going to buy a turntable. That's because, you know, the analog is better than the digital. Digital is compressed music. So, you know, I am looking at ways, you know, if an NFT is a way to monetize data, and vinyl records are coming back because there are places where young people are going back away from digital, you know, I think there's enough potential to look at NFTs as a way to gather interest in stamps through their digital representations in the hope that, you know, they're going to go to the physical.
Okay,
and that's our approach. There's still some problems, you know, with gas fees and all, but the big challenge, which is surmountable, is creating content. I mean, you've got to create content and value, and we've got a couple things that we're looking at that I think really have some promise. We're going to be, you know, I think there's a lot of experimentation to find out what works, what's gonna bring collectors back. The other thing I did recently, which is thinking out of the box, and this has to do with the question of, are stamps, you know, real to people today? There are, you know, I have a number of African American friends in my network. I'm in another space where I know a lot of African Americans, and you know, with all today's questions of diversity and history, you know, I did a little experiment. I asked a bunch of my friends, you know, would you like some stamps from the country of your origin? Now, these are so the thing about philately is I have this question, this conversation all the time. People ask me what I do, and then, you know, philately, it is kind of a joke. To your point, Bill, that the word doesn't really mean anything. It's interesting that you brought me to think about what it actually does mean, but if you can connect people, through stamps, that's one way. So I was surprised. I've got like 60 people, you know, told me, I think I'm from Sierra Leone. Can you send me some Sierra Leone? And I, you know, I'm creating 75 new stamp collectors through the stamps of their country of origin. Some people don't even know, but they still want it. Give me something. I have people say, give me a stamp from every country in Africa. Okay, that's a little more than I can do right now. But
it's a very
recent that they're, you know, so they want the stamps from the post-colonial era, right? Because those really reflect who Africa is to the Africans. So thinking out of the box, right? That's and this is not going to get us anywhere. We're all going to be finding a lane, get in it, and do something.
So that's fantastic. And we're looking on time-wise. We have 10 minutes left. So I think this could be a good time to open up for Q&A, hopefully. I will allow Isabel to hopefully do her magic so that she can tell us what it is we need to do to be able to respond to people.
Hi everyone. Thank you so much. Please do pop questions in or raise your hands if you want to ask the panel anything. I've got a couple of questions here. So someone who's anonymous has mentioned there's an upcoming show, and they have the upcoming show 2025 Europhilics. They've asked, what sort of innovative attraction would you like to see at shows that might be an entertainment to draw visitors? I actually think that's a really interesting question. What would you see that's different, or what attractions would you like to see at shows, or have you seen that's going to excite people? Should we, Tom, do you want to have a say on this?
You know, every day I try to create an experiment. The latest one I have is you type in a country and a catalog number, and it gives you an instant survey of the mint, the never hinged mint, used covers, blocks, multiples. So it just gives you an instant, slideshow of the top 10 in each of those categories. It's funny. So I'm just trying to collect these ideas and see if they fly, see if they gather interest. So far, that one really hasn't captured the interest of people that I thought it would, but that's what we got to do. We got to invent and create and find something that captures the imagination of people.
Yeah, exactly. Jack, any thoughts on this?
I'm not sure what new things you could come up with, but something that's always I've always been fond of at shows or events is big social dinners. I always find the grandeur quite appealing, and it's something that draws me in, and it's definitely kept me going within the hobby. Is the big social aspect, the big dinners, the big fanfare. I like those sort of things.
Yeah.
I'm wondering whether something like a sort of a nationwide initiative to encourage younger kids to get involved. I mean, I was reading just recently, there was an interview with Susanna Mills, who edits the APS magazine in the States, and she was talking about a school which had made a decision to try and collect in the wake of Holocaust anniversaries. They were trying to collect 11 million stamps to represent the number of victims of the Holocaust. And this suddenly took off. It was reported in local paper, and then it went sort of statewide, and then eventually nationwide. And they collected 11 million stamps. And it then became, those stamps were then used for a feature, a sort of the end product as part of an exhibit. Now, the topic may not be appropriate, but there are certainly lots of other things which may garner interest. And
I was going to.
I mean, I also very occasionally. I thoroughly enjoyed Guildhall at the end of February 2022. That was a amazing event. But in terms of an ongoing activity, it's difficult.
I think, Tony, if I could just, I ran an exhibition in 2015, and this issue arose then of trying to think of innovative things that we could do to make the show attractive. One thing we did was to bring the printing press from the Sperati's printing press from the RPSL, and we produced and we were able to give demonstrations of how it worked, and also produce some, if you like, little memorabilia things there, and that actually was very successful.
I can imagine, yeah.
It did attract interest. One point I would just make is, going back to what's been said, is local and family history are things that are of great interest to many people.
Agreed.
And there are lots of groups that look into these things, particularly local sort of groups.
Yeah.
And that could, if you were looking for something innovative, that could be a good theme for as a way of attracting what I was saying earlier about attracting the wider world and showing how philately can enhance their ability to understand the wider world. I was very interested in the comment about African Americans,
Right.
Entirely understandable. Yeah.
And the other area right off of that is, what are young people really interested in today? And especially college-age kids, what do we hear? It is the questions of racism, it's the questions of history, sexism. Those questions are really not really thinking out of the box, but and the question of our history. I mean, there young people are really wrestling with the question of our history, right? And there's a lot of truth and reconciliation projects going around the world on that conversation. But what if stamp collectors engaged in that conversation, really? Because we have a lot, we have a lot to contribute to that conversation, honestly. So.
Should we keep going with questions?
Sure.
We've got a couple.
I've unfortunately got to
You've
go,
got to go.
by now, but thank you very much, everyone, and
Thank you
it's
so
been
much,
it's
Jack.
been good.
Nice to meet you,
Awesome,
Jack.
thank you.
Perfect.
Yourself.
Should we just
Thank
take
you.
one
Thank
more
you.
question then, and then maybe we can go and if we just take one more question and then we can
Sure.
we'll close. So this one is actually for Tom. Tom mentioned there was lots of collections waiting to come onto the market. Are the vendors waiting for a better price, or is it that there are not enough buyers? If the latter, that doesn't sound especially good for medium and low end stuff.
Collections are going on. They're putting them on the market as fast as they can. They're pulling the premium items are probably getting kept back for the market, but that's my general sense. The auction companies are being flooded with collections, and they need to get. They just don't have the space, so they're going. They're not going to wait on those.
Well, I've just received the latest catalogue from Coram Field today, which has no less than 11 books in it with different collections, which just reinforces what you're saying. The pandemic played a part here as well, because it drew collectors back into collecting, and it boosted the market quite a lot. And clearly, a lot of people think that this is the time to sell their collections.
Sorry, I'm just moving us on a bit quickly because there's quite a few questions, and I know that we have a cut-off point. Someone's just highlighting there is a group of African American collectors called ESPA. There are many who connect for their ancestry. Sorry, thank you so much for highlighting that. That's great to hear.
Thank you.
Vivian Jones has said Southampton DPF has had a website for 20 years. We have just added a Facebook presence. That's brilliant. How should we use that to reach collectors in the 30 to 50-year-old range? Any insight on any tips on Facebook? Julian, you can probably pop, if you pop me an email, isabel@thepts.net, I can probably send some tips on Facebook to you if that's helpful. Tom, Bill, would anyone like to
I think
have a chat?
I think I'm probably the last person to ask for advice on Facebook.
We are on all the social medias. It's about content and engagement. We reach 103,000 people through our Facebook. We post 1,200 posts a month. We have a consultant that helps us do that, but it's content, engagement,
And marketing.
It takes time, but I think it will. And I don't know that we see any immediate results, but we do see some.
Amazing. And then we've got one from sorry, so many questions. Mia, who has said perhaps we should also be promoting stamp usage. Post crossing is great, pen paling is great. Do you send birthday cards through the post or postcards from your holidays? Hashtag postbox Saturdays and crochet toppers. And then she's also put that she's left,
Yeah.
but any answer or thought process? I mean, personally, I love post crossing. I think it's really fun. It's great. Don't know if anyone's a post crosser.
I only read about it.
Going back to handhelds, I mean, there's marketing in general, in business marketing, they're going back to handwritten notes. So
Yeah.
I would, yeah, do it.
There's about 897,000 people involved in the American or the main organization doing this. That's just incredible.
Ralph has basically said chess saw a massive upsurge after the film The Queen's Gambit. So it did. It was a great show. How do we expose the wider world to philately on that sort of scale?
Absolutely, that's my question.
Remake of Charade or Charade. That was the only one I think had any philatelic content in it, and we need a new Audrey Hepburn.
Ideas on a postcard, please.
Yeah.
Well, we are in TikTok, which everyone says horrors, but we've got over 5,000 followers on TikTok, and we're posting nothing but little surveys of stamps. So
I shall follow you. Definitely.
Brilliant. Well, we've whizzed through them, but we've answered everyone's questions. Thank you so much. I just want to say a huge thank you to everyone for taking part. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Jack, who's no longer here. Thank you, Bill. That was excellent. Thank you for spending the time with us. Brilliant.
Thank you very much indeed, Isabel. Very enjoyable.
And I hope we get to see a little bit of the coronation tomorrow.
Excellent. Yes. Thank you. I'll see you all later.
Okay, you take care.